Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at The Bride, a take on The Bride of Frankenstein, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, a gothic noir thriller with powerhouse performances from Bale and Jessie, Buckley, with a Bonnie and Clyde storyline mixed in with a bit of natural born killers. A terrific film that also has a dance number which breaks the film up quite nicely. Let's get into it. So the film starts off in black and white with an image of Mary Shelley, one of the writers of Frankenstein novels back in the day, and she is trying to figure out what her next book is going to be. And she's trying to figure out the story and who the characters are, what's happening. It's all black and white, but it's Jessie Buckley who is playing Mary Shelley. Then we cut to reality, and we see Jessie Buckley's character Ida at a dinner party in a fancy sort of nice restaurant in the 1930s Chicago. And this is where she starts suddenly, out of nowhere, starts speaking in a British accent and is spouting out some random words and just no idea what she's saying, and she has no control over what she's saying either. She's very erratic and out of control, and to a point where one of the customers believes that she's been possessed, when in fact, obviously, back in those days, there wasn't really a scientific term for schizophrenia, from what I understand, and then they just think of it as being possessed by something. And so they escort her out of the restaurants for being too sort of out of control and rowdy, and so they don't know what to do with her and accidentally throw her down the stairs, and she breaks her neck and she dies. That's the end of her story. But this is where we run into Frank, who has taken on the name of Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Victor Frankenstein. The monster has taken his name and used it as his own, and we see him walking through the streets of Chicago, wandering around and trying to figure out what to do next in life. He's lonely. He's been living a lonely existence for the past several hundred years. And so he tracks down a scientist called Dr. Euphraneous, played by Annette, Frankenstein being played by Christian Bale. And he hooks up with her, and at first Dr. Euphraneous has no idea who this random person is. She doesn't know. She notices like a few scars on his head, and then that's when it clicks for her. She's like, I know who you are. And she's actually inspired by the work of Victor von Frankenstein and has become a similar sort of scientist in the same sort of field. And that is why Frankenstein's monster, Christian Bale's character, has tracked her down, because he wants a mate, he wants companionship. He has been lonely all his life and hasn't missed out on God knows how many different types of experiences that he's not been able to have. And so this is where they team up, and she's like, yes, we can do this, but it's a one-time deal. And initially she just wants to observe Frank and his behaviors and see what makes him tick. And she kind of represents us as the audience, which is great. And so they team up and they dig up a body from the local grave, and it's Ida. And at first Frank thinks that she's actually too pretty. He's like, no, because he was made out of multiple different body parts, and so as she is the whole, all they're going to do is just reanimate her and bring her back to life. And so that's what they do. They bring Ida back to life, but when she comes to life, she's suddenly speaking in that English accent that she was speaking in the restaurant. She is very erratic and all over the place and keeps flipping between the American accent and the English accent. And both Frank and Dr. Euphraneous have no idea what's going on. And they're trying to figure out, who the hell is this person? What is happening? And once everything all settles down and Dr. Euphraneous is studying Ida and who she is and what's going on. Then they sort of let Frank and Ida go out. They have a night out and to experience life and see what's going on in the outside world after being sort of in this recovery phase, as it were, and haven't not left the lab for about a couple of weeks. And so they venture off into this nightclub and start dancing away. And then there's a little bit of conflict between a few people out in an alleyway. And so they get into an altercation. Frankenstein, very sort of protective of his new bride. And so he ends up killing these two people. And so they go off on the run from the law. And then it becomes like this Bonnie and Clyde, like I said, sort of natural born killers ride throughout the whole film. So this film is absolutely terrific. It's bold, it's gritty, it is shot in a way that is very sort of rebellious and quite low budget considering like the nature of the film. It feels like a big budget blockbuster film. They really swung for the fences with this one. The set design is incredible. For example, the lab where they reanimate Ida's body is so dark and so of that world. Like you could see all the wires on the floor, you could see the medical table. It's very sterile and dark and dingy as well, and got all these old-fashioned sort of dials everywhere, and it just feels like it belongs in the 1930s. Nothing seems out of place, and that reanimation sequence of Ida's body is amazing. Like what they do there is it really, Maggie Gyllenhaal really knows how to frame a shot and the cameras and how to really get the most out of every shot in the film. Especially during that dance sequence, which I'll talk about in a minute. I very much like the contradiction of characters between Frank and Ida. Frank can be a little bit shy, also a little bit naive as well. And when he needs to, he can be quite violent and vicious at times, also protective over Ida, over the bride. The bride, however, is more erratic, a bit more mental and a bit more out there. She's doing all the talking as well. And she sort of brings Frank out of his shell a little bit more. They work really well together, even though they are very opposite characters. And it's really great. And there's a really sort of heartbreaking scene where they first initially go on the run. Frank knows what's going on. He's experienced this before. He even says like, oh, later on there's going to be mobs of people and everyone's going to be chasing after us. I don't want that life for you. You go off and live your own life. I'll draw them away. And even though he's just got his bride and he's got the lifelong partner that he's been longing for so long, he has to go on the run by himself, but she has nowhere else to go. And so reluctantly he's like, okay, this may not be a life, but it is a life nonetheless. So if you come with me, we'll live the best we can whilst we're on the run. And so it's really sort of hauntingly beautiful in a sense. What's really great about the film is also Frank has been obsessed with like the silver screen, and especially sort of like the Fred Astaire style type of movies, the musicals and dance musicals, and especially that type of genre. And one of the characters, Ronnie Reed, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, Maggie Gyllenhaal's brother, has been his inspiration to keep on going and keep on living, and credits him just before the dance scene, which again is mad because this film really does challenge you in every single way. You're sitting around watching everything and being like, what am I looking at? It's like, again, sensory overload. This dance sequence comes out of the reaction to Ronnie Reed and Frank after not accepting the fact that he's a fan and he's rejecting the idea, and it's the dance sequence is born out of that. It's like that notion of like, don't meet your heroes, and he's been sort of disappointed by meeting his lifelong hero, and so he goes off in this sort of dance, really sort of well done and filmed. The main dance sequence, the lighting and the way it's shot, and it just really works for this film. And again, like I say, it breaks it up, and it's terrific. She does a tremendous job. I would say the only downfall is the detective story side of it. Peter Sarsgaard plays the lead detective, who's really good, I feel. But I do find that Penelope Cruz is in this also, and I just found her character to be a little bit like out of place, and not sure what she was doing in the film in the first place. But minor gripes. The whole film itself works really well, and I like the rebellious nature of it as well. Like, there's a scene where Frank and Ida are driving in this open top car going down this motorway or this like B road, whatever it is, and they're just loving life. And Frank is screaming in the top of his lungs and standing out of the car and holding onto the windscreen, and just you can tell that Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley have tremendous chemistry. I also found that whilst watching the film, I was kind of brought back to Brendan Lee's The Crow. It certainly had some of those elements in there in terms of like the way the film was shot. For example, the gothic noir aspect of it, and sporadic moments of colour, which really sort of lit up the scene as well. So, for example, like there was beauty in the darkness. So a lot of shots were, there were a couple of shots where they're in this like bathhouse or whatever it is and just waiting it out, and it was quite dark and dingy, and the dress that Jessie Buckley's character Ida was wearing was popping colour, making the scene much brighter in an otherwise darkened setting. And it worked really well, and you notice it, your eyes drawn to Ida's character because of the dress that she's wearing. And yeah, it's a terrific film. It works on very different levels, and it will get you thinking about life, death, grief, loss, and loneliness, and other different themes as well. And the character performances from Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley are terrific. Christian Bale loses himself completely in this. You know, I didn't see Batman, I didn't see American Psycho, or any of the other films that he's been in and been known for. None of that was present in his performance of Frank in The Bride. He was terrific, and so was Jessie Buckley. Like, she does madness like no other. Like, she really sort of embraces the madness of Ida and the madness of Mary Shelley trying to figure out what's going on. And so she was absolutely terrific. And yes, Maggie Gyllenhaal's direction was great. The way she shot and the way she framed, and her color palette in this was really sort of dark, but also there was beauty in the darkness as well. So definitely go and check this film out if you want to get the full scope and cinema experience, and you won't regret it. It's a very, very well crafted film, and I implore you to go and see it in the cinemas. Let me know what your favourite sort of gothic thriller type movie is, and please remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and I shall see you in the next video.